Oh, shit.
This week on Feel Good Friday, Japan is sending radioactive water into the ocean. A Mediterranean lifestyle will save your life. And planes almost hit other planes way more often than you think.
Oh, no.
I mean, I didn't want to just like completely make it like Jer and like bring the crazy intensity.
You did it, though.
But I got a little clean.
You got it.
Got a little clean. And we are just absolutely thrilled to be back with all of our little potatoes.
Dude, I don't even care about the other stuff
I know.
that comes before the plane thing.
I know.
Because I knew
you'd like it.
I was recently flying and I saw a plane outside of, like you've been flying before and like have looked.
I've never been on a plane.
You've looked out the window before and you've seen other planes while you're flying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen one that's like probably within 500 meters of you?
No, that's way too close.
I know, right?
That's
I saw that the other day.
Against the rules.
I saw that the other day and I was like, somebody made a mistake here. And it was okay, but like it felt like it was okay in that situation because we didn't crash, but like it felt like it was too close for comfort.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that. We're actually gonna finish. We'll finish today's episode with a conversation about planes. It's quite scary.
Yeah. That's a good trigger warning for my brother.
Yeah, I was thinking of Dennis as I was writing it down. I was like, man, Dennis is really not gonna like this.
You might want to skip this one.
Yeah, or listen to it. Because like it hasn't happened yet to you, and it probably won't. I mean, it probably won't. Oh, we'll get there. But we'll start with before all of that.
Dude, Loki's going to town on that bone.
Loki really is going to town on that bone. Since we walked in here and he saw that bone, because he actually has the same bone at home. And
that's not his.
No, it's not his. I think it's Donut's. And it's going to be gone by the time Donut is back in this office because Jer's away. As soon as he saw that bone, like we walked into the office, he's been chewing it since we got here, and that was 2 hours ago. Almost.
Not to make this a podcast about bones, but I'm curious now. Do those go away? Like
what do you mean?
As the dog eats, do they like literally chew it apart so that it becomes nothing?
Well, he'll chew
it looks
down.
So hard.
It's like a Y bone, so it's like a regular bone up, and then it Ys out into two different bones.
It looks like a slingshot.
He'll chew each one of those down until I could stab you with it, basically. Yeah, until it becomes like a very
crazy,
a dangerous weapon. And sorry if you can hear Loki chewing on that in the background. So before all of that, I think the most important thing that we're going to talk about, and the thing that I know that you want to talk about most, and the thing that our listeners want to know most about, is that I have a new max heart rate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, found out last night.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that it could go up at this age.
Well, if you work hard enough and you believe in yourself, it can.
Is that how it works? Actually,
well, your max heart rate. So this is, and the reason I'm bringing this up is
this is not what everybody wants to hear about.
No, it's not. But it's funny. But I it is true. My max heart rate. Well, at least Garmin told me that my max heart rate changed yesterday, and that was the result of a very intense bout of exercise. And the reason I brought it up is because of the bullshit nature of how people recommend that you figure out your max heart rate. Your max heart rate it's important for a whole measure of things, mostly the intensities at which you can exercise and like the benefits that each individual intensity level provides you. So like, it's not just it's not like if you exercise as hard as you can all the time that you get better benefits than if you exercise at like, a moderate rate. Like moderate rate has it gives you a different thing, gives you a different benefit than it does to exercise really intensely. So you basically,
like what, for example?
So like it's really, really, so for anybody with diabetes, anybody with any metabolic syndrome, or anybody who is especially looking to go from not doing much to doing something, the most beneficial thing that you're going to do is called zone 2 exercise. And your zone 2 is based off of your whatever your max is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So and pro athletes, especially endurance athletes, cyclists, cross country skiers, long distance swimmers, whatever, they spend most of their training time, like a pro cyclist will train about 30 hours every week, 25 to 30 hours every week. Like 70%, 75% of that might be spent doing like fairly low intensity, moderate intensity zone 2 stuff.
It's similar in
Because
paddling too.
it changes your zone 2 work changes your mitochondria. It improves mitochondrial function so that your metabolism and the way that you use fuel inside your body, primarily carbohydrates, and the way that you store and use fat is increased. So at zone 2, I'm getting way into the nerdy science of this, but if you train in zone 2, zone 2 is prescribed as about 70 to 75% of your max heart rate, which is why it's important to know what that number is, the max.
Mm-hmm.
And you will, if you're training in zone 2, you are training your body to more efficiently save carbohydrates and not use them, which carbs are your like jet fuel, and to use fat stores.
Right. So when I was coaching paddling, and because I didn't have a science background, I would regurgitate a lot of the things that I would hear from like my previous coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And like what we would say is that training around like 70 to 80% of your maximum effort you would be training more aerobic capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be better at like what you're saying. You're explaining the science of that, but basically what you're doing is increasing your ability to be more efficient for longer periods of time.
Yeah, because you have a very finite amount of carbs that get used up very quickly when you're exercising, but you have a ton of fat to use. Like even if you are somebody with a low body fat percentage, the amount of fat that you have relative to your carbs is like to your carbohydrate stores, what actually it's called your glycogen stores, is way like infinitely bigger.
Okay. So why though does it? Because my understanding was basically you don't have much control over your max heart rate. Your max heart rate sort of decreases with age.
It does, yeah.
And so like when I was 16, I might be able to hit like just over 200 beats per minute.
Mm-hmm.
And now probably as a guy in my mid 30s, I would be closer to like 180, 190 would sort of be where I would max out.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought like coming back to this thing about like training zone 2 and building aerobic capacity, I thought you just became more efficient at using your heart when you train at the rate that it's at. I didn't know that you could actually increase your heart rate still.
Well, it is inevitably over time going to go down. Over like a long stretch of time, your max heart rate is going to go down. But then what happens is that as it goes down, if it makes a small change, like if it goes from 190 to 187, your heart just actually pumps a little bit more blood to make up for that loss in max heart rate. When you get a big change, if you go from 190 to 180, then you are losing your capacity to like operate at like the very, very high end. But for a little change, for your heart tries to make up for that as much as it can by pumping just like a little bit more blood with every pump to make up for the slight loss in max heart rate.
So how did you improve your max heart rate?
Well, I don't really know. I just my head felt like it was going to explode. My max heart rate went up by one beat per minute. I was at 198 and now it's 199. That's what my Garmin told me.
But does your Garmin calculate that, like, not to get into like the even nerdier side of like how it calculates your max
Well, it calculates
heart rate?
it because you got it.
Is it?
It's
okay.
just that. It's going because this is the shitty way that max and again, I'm going to say this to people, guys, everybody. This is
bro science. This isn't even real.
No. This is real science, but this is like insanely important. It's like insanely important. You are like your whole quality of life basically revolves around exercising. And I will say, you get the most benefit you'll ever get in your life is from going from doing not much to doing something. Mm-hmm. That's where like the underneath the iceberg amount of benefit is.
I've got the hack for that.
It's the tip of the iceberg that is like in the high end exercise stuff that like you don't need to do. You really don't need to do unless for some reason you just you fall in love with a certain thing and you want to pursue it.
The easiest thing you can do to this point to improve your quality of life is to get a dog.
Yeah,
It really is.
Yeah, go on daily. That's built into that dog as a daily walk.
Totally.
If you're responsible dog owner.
Yeah, right. And also, I mean, the mental health sort of
Yeah,
aspects of having
totally.
a dog that, are obviously correlated to the fact that you're getting exercise in a way that you weren't before. But just having a dog that gives you love is incredibly important.
The benefits
It's
are
incredibly valuable.
multifactorial. So your max heart rate, the beef that I have with max heart rate, and this is the last thing that we'll say on this, is that you are supposed to say that your max heart rate, if you want to know what it is, this is what quote unquote they say. If you want to know what your max heart rate is,
Big heart rate.
instead of going out and working as hard as you can to push your heart rate up and figure it out for real, you're supposed to take 220 and back out your age.
Okay.
Okay. So for me, I'm 32. So that would be 188 for me.
That would be your max?
That's your max based on that formula. That formula is total horseshit.
Yeah, right. Because if you were 60 years old, that means that your max is only 170. Sorry, that's bad math.
If you're 60,
160.
if you're if you're 60 years old, you're gonna minus 20, and then you're gonna 40. Yeah, so yeah, 160. So that's a bullshit formula, and I think the reason that that's bullshit is because if you are highly fit, that's probably not your max. If you are very unfit, you probably have a lot of room to improve it. Like, so anyway,
I still think I can hit 200.
it's bullshit. 200's hard. 200's real hard.
I always just thought that you just had to work hard.
I have a high heart rate for my age, and I think I've only hit 200 once in the last few years, and it might have even been an error on my heart rate monitor. Like 195, 196, I hit regularly. Anything over 195, 196 is like it's like I gotta be on death's doorstep.
I feel like you're just not pushing hard enough,
dude. You just see me last night. Holy shit! I thought I was gonna explode. Okay, dude. We stopped, and Ed said something to me like, "Yeah, do you have time to go get a beer?" And I just like looked up and was like, "What? What you say?" The beer helped though. Okay, so the first thing that we want to talk about today, Japan.
Wait, this is the first thing?
This is the first thing in my intro. Yeah, I got sidetracked. I didn't actually plan on going into the heart rate thing so much, but I am so fucking nerd. I nerd out on that stuff so much. I love it. Japan is sending radioactive water into the ocean.
I saw this.
You saw this?
Yeah.
You saw this morning? Maybe yesterday?
No, I saw this a couple weeks ago.
Oh, fuck, then I'm old news.
Yeah.
This was in my morning brew newsletter this morning.
This is good. Okay, give me the details. So re-up me on it. The debate about this is really interesting because
Totally.
like headline sounds fucking scary.
Reality,
you
not so
know,
much.
but
then
even so, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Get into the details.
We're getting sidetracked.
Give our listeners a little idea about what we're about to talk about.
Okay, so Fukushima happens in 2011. The Fukushima nuclear meltdown.
Yeah.
Okay, so earthquake. It's not a earthquake. It's an earthquake followed by a tsunami, right? Or is it a tsunami followed by an earthquake? I can't remember what
the earthquake happens. And that triggers the tsunami.
Right?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not a dummy. So that happens. Fukushima plant is rocked. Power shuts down. The water is no longer circulating around the rods that cool the rods and preventing them from the nuclear rods, preventing them from melting down.
So we got a lot of heat.
That's right.
It gets hot.
And then that causes an explode. I don't even actually, you know what? I'm not even sure if there's an explosion. I don't know exactly how it went down, but basically it was like, no bueno. Not good. Now, the thing about nuclear power is that happens very infrequently. It's something like the amount of deaths that you can attribute to nuclear accidents, nuclear power plant accidents versus like something like coal or oil and gas, like manufacturing or anything like that, is like, it's like a fraction of a fraction.
There's a lot of stigma around nuclear power.
A lot of stigma, even though it is. I think it's even safer than like wind and solar. I think there's more deaths attributed to the production of wind and solar energy than there is to nuclear. It's
That's
crazy.
interesting.
Johnny Harris did a really interesting video on it not long ago. And so anyway, there are 1.34 million metric tons of contaminated water that are in tanks underneath the plant.
Reactor.
And this is and that water is there because they circulate water, like I said, around the nuclear fuel rods to cool them, to keep them cool, to keep them from melting down.
Mm-hmm.
And that water needs to keep circulating. So that water is being circulated and then cleaned or treated in some way, and then returns and then is like reused and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now that water's just been sitting there and they're kind of like, we need to do something with this water. So they treat the water, they filter the water out. It's now free of contaminants except for an element called tritium. Tritium sounds scary.
It does sound
Its
scary.
other name is hydrogen-3. Not so scary.
Wait,
That's
why does it have two names?
I think hydrogen-3 is like it's like H3
Yeah.
is like its name is tritium. Do you know what I mean? Like on the
Okay.
table of
Yeah,
elements, it would
yeah.
be tritium, but really it's like hydrogen-3. So hydrogen-3 is a radioactive element. I don't know. I guess it would be an element. They say isotope, but anyway, I don't know.
Let's use what they say.
I don't know what the difference is between an isotope or an element. They say isotope. So it's a radioactive isotope. It decays over time, and once it decays, I think it takes 12 years to decay, and then it turns into another element, and so on and so forth until a very, very long time goes by. So radioactive elements in our water,
Bad.
not good. We don't want that. But an organization called the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, okay, they approved the plan of this Fukushima plant of Japan's plan to dump this water. Okay, they were like, this is all good. You can do this. People were upset about this, mostly environmentalists and the fishing industry in Japan.
So the plant was basically like, hey, we have all this water. We need to get rid of it. We're going to dump it into the ocean.
They were like, the most viable way to get rid of this is the ocean.
And they were like, listen, we're going to get approval from this agency. And this agency's like, yeah, we're going to test it. Looks good. You can dump it.
Yeah.
And everybody in Japan is like, no.
Not everybody in Japan,
particularly
but
the
environmentalists
and
environmentalists around the world.
And particularly the fishers are like, no, absolutely not. Do not
Right.
do this.
Which is a very, very rational fear because China has already banned fish exports from Fukushima.
Yeah.
And it's a huge fishing is a huge industry in Japan. Obviously, everybody knows about sushi. So, not good for the fishing industry, even though this issue is actually kind of bullshit. At least bullshit according to the standards that we have already, standards that are in place. Basically, the standards that are in place right now, this doesn't even come close to stepping over the limits of what is being done around the world already and all these things. So like there's countries, there's power plants out there that have been doing this exact same thing on a regular basis with no one raising any flags or getting pissed. Maybe environmentalists are. I'm not really super familiar with the issue or the history of the issue. But essentially, the WHO has so the thing that there's an amount of tritium in the water, and the amount of tritium in the water is measured at 190 becquerels per liter. A becquerel is a measurement of radioactivity.
Okay.
So there's 190 becquerels per liter in the water that they're releasing. The WHO's limit for safety is 10,000.
Okay.
Okay. So they are.
So it's well on.
So they're
the
like 2.
safety
They're
limit.
like 2. It's 2% of the limit set. Okay. So that's the limit set by the WHO. 2 power plants in the UK exceed that. Not the limit, but they exceed. They release water into the ocean with more than that every year, And it was also already a common practice in Japan to do this before Fukushima. Okay. So there's two things here. It's basically like, well, what are you getting your panties up in a bunch about? Because it's nowhere near the limit and we've been doing it already. And then the other question is, but is that okay?
I can tell you the big problem here is that, and to use a little bit of an analogy. So like, imagine there was a veterinarian who worked with elephants and specifically did prostate exams of elephants.
I already adore where this is going.
Okay, so this doctor has found that this veterinarian has found that over the course of doing these exams, it's really better to get a feel for the health of the elephant's prostate by not wearing gloves. So they just are barehanding it. Okay.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
they're going in there, they're doing an exam, and they're obviously pulling this veterinarian is pulling their hands out. And,
I love the way you're waving your arm around.
They're sort of covered in obviously in fecal matter. And so this veterinarian, like any good veterinarian, goes to the bathroom after they finish and they wash their hands with warm soapy water.
Yes.
Now, the veterinarian meets you at the buffet lunch right after they had just finished performing this exam. They've washed their hands.
Right.
By all standards, they're clean.
What more could they do?
They're clean. And then they go into the salad bar and they're scooping the lettuce out with their bare hands.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, they're clean.
They're clean.
But you know where they just were. Do you eat that salad?
No, because that's a faux pas anyway.
Right.
That's a faux pas. That's a faux pas outside of having clean hands.
Okay, let's assume it wasn't. Let's take the faux pas off the table.
I
here.
mean, we're basically talking about double. Like, are we double dipping now?
Okay, so okay. Do you eat the salad?
Do I eat the salad? No.
Why not? It's clean. By all measurements, it's clean.
But
the hands were clean.
The concern is not that there's poop on it. It's that there's this guy on it. Because he's not just depositing fecal matter. That's not the only thing that I'm concerned with.
But he's
also depositing his skin cells and God knows what.
So, but I mean, that stuff's already.
I mean, the man has made a decision to not wear a glove when he sticks his hand up the ass of an elephant. How can we trust this man?
I guess I didn't make the point I was trying to make, but the point that I'm trying to make is that the problem is the stigma associated with eating fish from Fukushima.
You have questionable social habits that I am now extremely concerned about.
But like, for example, would you, I guess to not use an analogy at all.
Would you eat the ass of an elephant?
if you went to Sushi Jet in my building and they had on the menu fresh Fukushima salmon, would you order that? Or would you well,
I mean, especially knowing, so if I just read the headline of that article, I would probably be of the mind to go no. Because I haven't looked into it.
But even if you read the article, would you eat that fish?
Yeah, totally.
Fukushima versus Atlantic salmon at Sushi Jet. Do you eat the Fukushima salmon?
I mean, if I've got the choice, I'm probably going to go local. I mean,
Okay.
Why would I not?
It's
it made
Fukushima.
a much shorter journey.
It's so hard to come up with an accurate analogy. Okay. Fukushima salmon or New Zealand salmon.
Okay,
They're both on the menu side by side. You have the choice to choose between one or the other. What do you choose? Seriously, actually.
Okay. Since I've got zero reference for like the quality of the,
You just read that article and you know that those are good. You're assuming New Zealand salmon's fresh. What do you choose?
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with New Zealand salmon.
Why?
Because I've got a subconscious bias associated with this fish now.
And now this is the problem with the entire fishing industry.
I understand.
I mean, I know that you understand that, but like this is the problem. The problem isn't so much like whether or not it's really dangerous to eat it or not.
Because China already banned fish exports from Fukushima, even though, China's not banning. I'm not sure if they get fish exports from the UK, but like if they do, it's like, well, I mean, by, in theory, you should be banning exports from there as well, because that's a problem.
This is why it's such a challenge, because like, scientifically they might look at this and go, hey, look, the science says that this is fine, but the impact on the entire fishing industry in Japan, just by them releasing this water into the ocean, has this massive negative effect, even if it's
Absolutely.
not based in
Totally.
the science or the reality of the situation, which is, then you have to argue, like, what is more important, that the science is correct and you're making the correct decision based on the science, or are you considering the impact that it has on the industry at large?
And I think you made a perfect point there. Eventually, which was
It took 3 tries.
which is that even if you are familiar with the situation and you understand that the fact that they are doing it is not necessarily a break from the norm, and that the fish from that region have been exposed to the same levels of that for a decade or more, or probably much more than a decade. Not to necessarily, I want to make it clear that, like, I don't know if this is good to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, who knows if the level that is being emitted, maybe it should be zero. I don't know.
And
I don't know.
also, I mean, just for further context, you're not really sure if we can ever really trust science and, these big industries.
Yeah, exactly. but to make the point of even somebody who understands the issue, it's like, there's still a subconscious, like, I mean, if I've got to pick between two, might as well pick the one that I have zero negative association with whatsoever, even on a subconscious level.
Which is an interesting point, because you said that really well. Zero negative association. It doesn't mean that the other one is better.
Yeah.
It's just that from as far as you know and your biases, you haven't been influenced.
No one ever released an article about New Zealand salmon, so that's the one I'm going to pick. Exactly. Which is fucking fascinating. Anyway, let us know what you think about that. And if you happen to be a nuclear expert or an environmentalist and you have any ideas on that, let us know, because we don't know. Maybe you saw this. So you follow Jerry News. I follow Jerry News.
Not anymore.
Right, not anymore. Because we can't get news in Canada on Instagram anymore. Although you can put your VPN on.
Does it work?
And you can still get it.
Okay.
Yep. You just have to close Instagram and then open it up again once you
Sweet.
put your VPN on. Although I have been getting the posts in my news feed. I just can't go to the page.
Oh, really? So you do still see it on your feed?
I'm getting the posts. I'm getting them in my feed that they've been posted, and I can see them and read them. But then if I go to the page without a VPN on, I can't get it.
That's interesting. I'm sure they'll fix that. I mean, fix that as in make sure that you're not allowed to see that anymore.
Yeah. A side note, and we mentioned this before we started recording, that CBC, the Canadian government is urging Meta to reinstate news because of the wildfire situation in the Yukon, in Yellowknife, and the fact that people are having trouble sharing news updates about wildfires, evacuations, where to go, that sort of thing. Which I don't know. I don't really want to weigh in on that whole thing. It's a complicated thing that I'm only vaguely aware, that I'm only peripherally familiar with. So I'm not going to weigh in on that. But
whatever happened, it's really fucking annoying.
It is really annoying. There's no doubt about that. But one such thing that came up on my Jerry News recently was the release or the conclusion of a new study out of Harvard that was looking at the health effects of not a Mediterranean diet, which we've heard a lot about. Mediterranean diet is like largely a vegetarian diet filled with lots of like fruits and vegetables and
big in the blue zones,
grains, big in the blue zones.
I mean,
Sardinia,
specifically the Mediterranean blue zone, but
specifically the Mediterranean blue zone, specifically Sardinia, which is an island off of Italy, west coast of Italy, I believe. This is the Mediterranean lifestyle. So going beyond food and going into some other things as well, which we'll talk about. So
smoking shisha.
I don't think shisha. Yeah. I think when they talk about Mediterranean, they're talking about North Mediterranean.
Okay.
I
Not
don't
like
think they're
not like
talking about like Algeria
Alexandria.
and Tunisia and Morocco. Is Morocco in the Mediterranean, or is that on the Atlantic? I can't remember. But I guess like Algeria, Tunisia,
Egypt,
Egypt. Is Egypt on the
Alexandria.
And then what else is up there? I'm trying to think about all the countries that are on like the north coast of Africa.
That's it.
I could look at a fucking map. Obviously, I've got a computer right in front of me. But the Mediterranean lifestyle can lower the risk of premature death by 29%.
Whoa.
So this is the interesting thing. And this is something that I didn't think about until recently, reading Peter Attia's book, where it was laid out in this little section, which made me think. Now 29% maybe doesn't sound like that much.
Sounds like a pretty decent amount.
Okay, so I think it does too, but I'll tell you where I'm coming from with this. Is that you hear all the time, like, such and such thing will get, can increase your risk of, cardiovascular disease by 25-fold, or 25 times more likely to die from this or that or whatever. Now, 25 times, that's 2,500%.
It's a lot of percents.
It's a lot of percents. Now, you can increase something many-fold, but when you are decreasing something, you start at 100. So there's only 100% to decrease. Okay? So if a Mediterranean lifestyle decreased your risk of premature death by 100%, it means that you'd have to die as an old person. That's what that would mean.
Right, yeah.
Okay? So you're only working back from 100. So if you factor in a Mediterranean lifestyle, the odds are, not a guarantee, but the odds are that you are now only 71%. There's only a 71% chance of dying before old age, before like natural causes of old age. Okay. And then if you factor in, a ton of other stuff and factor on, you're further decreasing that if you're doing like good lifestyle choices.
71% of the average of how many people make it to that.
That's right.
Old age.
That's right. Just want to talk a little bit of stats there, because it's important. Stats can be misinterpreted very easily.
So like if, let's say 70% of people make it to old age. So 70 out of 100 make it to old age, whatever we define old age as. You're decreasing that you're increasing your likelihood by a third.
That's right.
To make it. So 1 in 3 in the group that's not in that group will then make it to old age if they wouldn't otherwise.
You're using confusing language now, and I'm done. So
this kind of reminds me of this veterinarian
who sticks his hands up the asses of elephants. So the study looked at a few things. It looked at the diet, which is something that I think a lot of people are familiar with, like the health benefits of a Mediterranean diet.
What's the lifestyle?
Oh, so I'm telling you right now. So it's this. So it includes a diet using locally available products. Okay.
I bet sex is. Bet Mediterraneans are just fucking all the time.
So it measured Mediterranean food consumption. Okay. So that's like the choices of foods that you eat. And then it said Mediterranean dietary habits. Let me, because there was a specific differentiation that they made here.
Not eating
which I was
before
like,
swimming,
this is
or
interesting. What does this mean? The researchers analyzed. Okay, so let me lay the study out for you and what they did. Okay, so the study looked at 110, just shy of 111,000 people.
I thought you were gonna say 110 Mediterraneans.
No, 111,000 people. Over the course of 9 years. They were between the ages of 40 and 75, and it measured Mediterranean food consumption, which was intakes of foods part of the Mediterranean diet, such as fruits and whole grains. It measured Mediterranean dietary habits, which they differentiated as the adherence to habits and practices around meals, including limiting salt and drinking healthy beverages.
This still sounds like the diet.
I know. I was a little bit confused, but it might be it might
Like,
be
are they
around
riding
like
bikes a lot?
it might
Are
be
they
around like times that you eat. And I think that there's some mix. There's this last one is mixed in amongst all of this, which was physical activity, which I believe is generally
Zone 2?
of the moderate type, zone 2, which we talked about at the beginning of this episode. You're fucking welcome. Rest,
Naps.
rest is super important.
Naps.
Rest is mega important. I have rested. Side note, I have rested more this summer as a result of having Zaya.
How do you define rest?
Days where I'm not exercising.
Okay.
I have done more rest, and I'm generally relaxed. Like if I'm not exercising, my mode is relaxed. I really don't have like another mode other than chill. Generally, I have my moments, but generally chill.
I can't relax.
That's a problem. So I have rested more this summer having Zaya because I don't have as much time to ride. My fitness up. More rest. Thought it would go down. Nope. I ride less. When I ride, I'm ready to go. Like hardcore ready to go. It's actually quite a revelation.
You're like Rupert has a sore leg right now, and so I didn't take him to the park for a week to like try to like just short on leash walks to like try to let his leg heal up, trying to get that rest. And then I took him.
Get that rest.
I took him to the park on Sunday morning after like not being there for a week, and he looked like a linebacker at the park, just like destroying other dogs, just like thinking he was playing. Yeah, it was hard. There's 4 dogs who died.
Wow, that's tragic.
That's not funny actually.
Now Brian's not allowed at the park anymore.
But it was crazy to see like how much pent up energy you could have. So like I just imagine you got that dog in you.
I got that dog in me.
So like you're just going. You just would go.
And I'll say this for our listeners that if you are a type A person, which there is I am not, but there is I would say you are. I'd say you're a mix. I'd say you're a good mix A B. There's a lot of people that are like strict A out there. If you are not allowing yourself to rest, what you're not allowing your body to do is to filter out fatigue. Because as you filter out fatigue, your ability to perform, and I don't just mean in exercise, I mean in like intellectual fatigue is a big thing. Like if you don't allow yourself to have like a weekend or a period of time where you don't work, you are building intellectual fatigue. Man, and your performance is decreasing. You're building your ability. You're continuously building your ability to perform if you rest. But if you never do the rest, you never get the full benefit of the work that you've put in. You gotta rest.
I get that, but I find it so hard to like. I have like ADHD paralysis basically. So like if I have a day off, and I do lay around and do nothing all day, which like never ever happens. But if I do that, I feel guilty about all of the ideas that I had in my head that I should have been working on that I didn't do anything towards. Like, or like, even just looking into the corner of my room and seeing like an easel that I bought with like a canvas on it that I intended to paint that I just didn't do, even though I know it would be relaxing and like enjoyable to do that. I'm like, I could do that. I could build this app on my computer. I could build this website. I could do some 3D modeling. I could, go for a walk. I should go for a hike. It's nice out in summer. Like I just think of all of these things that I should do. And so I can't do anything. And then I feel guilty that I didn't do anything.
You know what you should do? You should have a kid. Because then you know what? There's a whole bunch of stuff that you just got to do.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like I get it from.
And there's really no option. You can't neglect it.
That seems like a bad solution. Like
and
having a child as a solution to that problem. And you know what it is also? A lot of people might think that I'm fucking crazy by saying this or think that I'm out to lunch, but it's also very relaxing. There's a lot of people who are like, fuck.
Because like, no offense, but like, it's time consuming, no doubt, but it's kind of easy.
You should. Anyway,
It's time consuming, no doubt. Like but it's not hard work. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean though?
Yeah, you're giving me too much ammo as a guy without a child, so that all my friends with kids now I'm gonna be like, no doubt, it's time consuming.
It's no doubt
what you're
time
doing.
consuming.
But it's pretty easy, honestly, what you're doing. Like if I said that to you,
Dude.
if I called Kyla right now and I was like, hey, listen, do
Don't
you want to do something
No, you can
on
say
the
it to
weekend?
Kyla.
Because like, no doubt, you got a lot of your time is consumed, but like, it's easy stuff that you're doing. So like,
yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know if you want to say that. But I would hazard to
Kyla,
say
I don't think that.
I would say
Taylor
that,
thinks
that
this. Just
Kyla
for the,
Kyla would probably generally agree with you if you laid it out in like a factual manner. Because Kyla, dude, if there's a thing that Kyla loves most in the world, it's being a mom. Like it's insane. Like she's going back to work very soon and from mat leave, and it's not because she doesn't want to go back to work. It's that she just loves spending all of her time with Zaya.
Mhm.
Like she really, really fully wants to just be with Zaya.
yeah,
And it makes me
no
feel bad
doubt.
'cause I don't
And
get
like,
to do that.
honestly, I don't blame her because like, I mean, it might be time consuming, but like, it's an easy job. so like, yeah, why wouldn't you want
Oh
it?
man, there is somebody who I just literally set their head on fire. So yeah, they followed up with this cohort of people 9 years later and concluded that it lowered their risk of premature death by 29%. I mean, I think the thing that stood out to me about this was the time spent with friends. There's a time spent with friends component to this.
Mhm.
And it's like, they specifically called it non-scripted or non-structured time with friends,
Mhm.
which I was like, man, that's what we've had so much of in our life forever.
It's like
that I've always valued very highly.
when you ask the question, "Do you want to hang?" and there's no objective of the hang.
Yeah.
Like that's it. There was I can't remember what podcast or radio show I was listening to, and they were talking about like how there's sort of like crisis happening in the modern world where people aren't spending unstructured time with friends.
yeah, and they're dying because of it.
Well, it's interesting to like that this comes up as part of this study because like it is rarer as you get older to be able to just hang out with somebody without any sort of objective or like plan or anything, like just calling your friend up and saying, "What are you doing? Let's hang out."
Mm-hmm.
That happens far less as you get older.
Which is interesting because like we've talked a lot so much over the past number of years on the podcast about the importance of like, if you need to talk to somebody about something like mental health wise, to like make specific time for it. And that is important. But the unstructured time that you spend with friends is the thing that is going to make it less likely that you might have an event like that in the future where you need to talk to somebody. I'm not saying that it's going to erase it, but it might help decrease the likelihood that you might develop something that needs that conversation in the first place.
Also,
or needs it so badly.
Not to get too detailed with how you should structure your time to hang out with your friends, but like in that unstructured time, you can also structure time amongst the unstructured time to have that conversation that you need to have, and then still be unstructured outside of the structure.
Right, structure and structure balance.
Yeah,
Scripted, unscripted, like a good reality TV show.
That's the hardest part about making new friends as you get older.
Yes,
because you do you notice how you don't really start a friendship with unstructured hang time? Like you need to like be like, hey, do you want to meet up here and do this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of weird if you don't really know the person. You're like, hey, do you want to just hang?
Yeah.
Like at this time without any plan.
You know, so last week we were at Rich O'Coin show last Friday. And
it was sweet.
A really good time. My calves are still sore from jumping up and down. And
maybe that helped you achieve your max heart rate.
It might have. It might have helped where the blood didn't go all the way down to the bottom of my legs. So it just increased the pressure, which made my heart beat. And that's definitely not how it works. But and I was jumping up and down, and Dave and I had our arms around each other, and we were jumping up and down, just having the best time ever. And I looked over at Dave, and I said something to the effect of like, you know, at a time in my life where I thought I wouldn't make another best friend in the world, like you showed up or something like that, and was like, I fucking love you.
You really just said, I fucking love you. because
yeah, I did.
In the heat of the moment, it would be really difficult to get all those words out.
I
But
did, but I actually did. I said that whole thing.
You communicated
that whole idea
with your mouth moving like that.
Yeah, I did.
Holy shit.
I
That's
did.
Good.
Yeah. And then I kissed him on his bald head, and it was so sweaty. And it was fantastic.
I feel the
so
same.
Friends,
I
so
feel the
time
same.
Friends, very important.
I mean, this is getting very specific for people who don't know our friend Dave, who we just, met in the last like 8 years.
Dave? Yeah, 6, 7 years ago.
I also like going to hang with Dave at like IKEA the other day when I just went on it, just joined him for a trip for no reason and just went and hung out.
There's
And
nothing like a bro hang at IKEA.
I fucking love IKEA. I've actually felt like I was cheating on you a little bit at IKEA because like I feel like
I saw the photo.
I feel like we've had some special IKEA hangs.
We have. Trying out beds.
But IKEA is
trying out rooms.
IKEA,
this one feels good.
IKEA is my favorite place.
It's a special place. Until it's not. There's a threshold of time
I can hang
which you pass at IKEA where it goes from being the best to the worst.
If somebody needs an IKEA buddy, like I'm the person to call up and go. I also feel like, you know what I feel like my IKEA strengths are?
Do tell.
I'm a good window shopper. So like I love
like for windows? Like for window accessories?
No, like I can just look. Like I'm good at just
Right.
looking.
Right.
In those situations. Like I could walk through IKEA and leave with nothing.
Yeah, which is
So-
amazing because I want everything.
So it's a good trait to have someone with you in that situation where you don't end up spending money. I fucking slay the downstairs section
Yep.
where there's all the little bits and bobs.
And everybody knows because IKEA is a very structured company. So everybody knows that the downstairs section is where all the bits and bobs are.
So in that section, I can usually do good at like collecting a few things that are really cheap. And so like maybe I'll spend like 20 or 30 bucks. But like also I can spend forever. You know what it is? You know what I think it is? I think it's the ability. So IKEA is really good. I'm super passionate about this.
I
But
can tell.
IKEA is super good
It's in your voice.
at setting up those rooms in a way that you can imagine yourself in that room, but there's also a room enough to use your imagination to sort of like create your own vision from
Right.
what they provide you with.
They're also very unrealistic rooms. Most of the time.
Yeah.
Because you go, what house has this perfect space for this perfect thing? And I think they're largely imaginary.
That's
Do you know
possible.
what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, but I also feel like, part of the intent is not like, this is where I feel like my creative imagination really allows me to go escape the bounds of like what they've laid out for me in that structure.
Unstructured.
And look at that and go, but I would take this and put this here, and like here's how I'd envision it in my place, and like that actually makes me think of like, what if I took this thing from here, and I want to
actually have a
shop this
study
whole
here. It
collection.
says unstructured IKEA rooms will increase your risk of decrease your risk of premature death by
I would
72,000%.
totally believe that. What would increase your risk of death at IKEA is eating all the hot dogs at the end.
That will certainly raise your blood pressure.
Fuck,
all right.
dude. Speaking of like not just IKEA, but like thinking of the food places at the end, like when you're checking out of IKEA, reminds
just
me
ignore it.
the
I
Costco
don't
one is
even look at it.
Costco one is better. Costco hot dogs and pizza.
I mean, you can't beat $1.50 hot dog.
It's
And
unbelievable.
aren't the ones at IKEA even cheaper? Aren't they like 80 cents?
I love going to Costco with Maddie because she's like much more of the adult in the relationship where she's like, we need these things. And like, she's very organized.
Kyla's
And
like
I'm
that
like,
with me.
I just can't wait to get to the hot dogs at the end.
Yeah. And you're like, everything is free while we're here, right?
I'm like, while you're paying, I'm going to go and eat a hot dog.
You are such a little baby.
I love you, Maddie.
All right. So our final piece today, our most shocking piece, planes.
Oh, fuck.
Planes almost hit other planes way more often than you think.
I forgot we were getting here.
This is kind of crazy. Okay, so this was an article in the New York Times. Actually, I saw it the other day. I saw it a few days ago and didn't really think much of it. I didn't look at it at the time, and then it showed up again in the newsletter that I get every morning. And I was like, oh, it showed up again. Maybe I should take a look. And 46 close calls involving commercial airlines in the United States last month.
No.
So this is like a lot of this is concerning, and
You
I
can
think
just stop that there.
I think
yeah.
that this could provide some comfort, because like my idea of like a plane crashing and being really bad is it falling out of the sky at 35,000 feet.
Yeah.
Like that's my like, oh,
Right.
we're done.
Like you get some turbulence, you feel the plane feel like it drops for what feels
Yep.
like a little bit too long, and you're
Yep.
like, this is it, we're going down.
Yeah.
And that's the fear.
Yeah. I mean, I have zero fear of flying. I think it's totally illogical to have a fear of flying because, well, mostly because it's been 14 years since there's been a U.S. airline plane crash. So there you go. And it's probably about the same for a Canadian, like for a major crash. They just don't happen very often. And getting all wound up about something that never happens is the definition of silly.
Yeah, but at the same time, even knowing statistically that that's true, there's still something unbelievable about flying through the air at 800 kilometers an
Yep.
hour in a metal tube.
I agree.
That makes you feel uncomfortable about the idea. Also,
But isn't it fascinating that they've gotten so good at it that you can do it every day, all day, for like decades, and like the likelihood of you ever being in some type of like life-threatening crash or accident in that situation is
equally as unbelievable for sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
We've gotten so good at it. Okay, so the reason that I bring that up is because this really centers around close calls in and around airports.
That makes sense.
And it really has to do with something that is sort of related to health in the sense that the same way that nurse burnout is rampant and has grown exponentially, especially through the COVID years until now,
The ATCs.
is the air traffic controllers, and which I assumed is what you meant by ATC.
Yeah.
They are like ridiculously overworked, and they work, dude. This is the same phenomenon. Hey, buddy. Hey, can you sit down? Can you lay down?
No, I'm not going to lay down. I'm not tired.
There you go. This is a very similar thing to nurses being overworked, and the overworked, and with physicians and nurses being called upon to do very important jobs with very little rest
Right.
on terrible schedules.
Do you think that there's a lack of air traffic controllers because there are more kids making millions of dollars from like making TikTok videos or YouTube videos that they're just like, hey, instead of being an air traffic controller, I'm going to do this. And now there's no supply of air traffic controllers. And so specifically, it's YouTube's fault.
I wouldn't narrow it down specifically to YouTube, but I would say that YouTube and probably 10,000 other things have micro influences. And when you pile them all up, look at me talking like Trump. And when you pile them all together, it's the worst. Nothing's worse than 10,000 things piled together to make air traffic controllers
You make me feel
less
uncomfortable.
viable. So it says here, over the past decade, the number of fully trained air traffic controllers has fallen by 10%. Again, we're working from 100. 10% is a lot.
Yeah.
While
doesn't feel
airport
like that
traffic
much.
has increased by 5%. That's not good.
That doesn't feel
No,
like
we
a
don't
lot
want
either.
that. We don't want that relationship. This indicates a growing gap between the number of controllers and the workload they face. Okay, so they do something called the Rattler
Man,
schedule.
I feel like like, I understand. Obviously, they're saying that this is a problem, but if you told me those numbers and I thought about like, imagine what it took to be an air traffic controller 40 years ago versus what it probably takes now. Not to like, not to not to start beef with the air traffic control industry, but like,
I think what you're raising is part of the problem. I think they're not
Technology.
utilizing technology. I don't think they're leveraging technology as much as they
you
they
mean
should
to
be.
tell me that managing all of those planes that are flying in the air, they're not using, they haven't improved the technology that they're using
I
to
don't think-
manage that.
I'm making a total guess here. This is not an educated guess, but I would say because of the problem that has arisen, that they are not leveraging it to the extent that they could, because this is all these errors. Okay, so understaffing as
You know what? I think YouTube might actually be the problem, and not that people are becoming YouTubers over air traffic controllers.
hundreds of close calls in and around airports, and we're talking about like miscommunications of planes coming into land, planes taking off, how those flight paths are like intersecting
Yeah.
each other, like having last minute fucking pull ups off the run from not landing on the runway and yanking up, and then that intersecting with like another flight path of another runway on that same airport that like obviously they didn't plan for a fucking airplane to come in and start to land and then pull off 90 degrees to the left, you know? So it's like all these issues. They have something called the Rattler schedule, which is, it says many air traffic controllers work a schedule known as the Rattler, which involves rotating shift start times. This is possibly the worst thing ever. Can you imagine if you work long 12-hour shifts and not only do you work like overnight, but like one night you start at midnight and then one night you start at like 2 and then the next day 4, and like you're
It's
just like
never any
you're
consistency.
you're dead.
Wait,
You're-
why is
you're
that?
employing a zombie?
Why are they doing that?
So it says it involves rotating shift start times over the course of a week. I don't know why they do it. It
You know
says
what?
this is a grueling schedule coupled with mandatory overtime.
I've
and has
never
pushed controllers to their physical and psychological limits.
I've never understood shift work. And look,
That's bad. I mean, you need it. It's unfortunately that you need it,
no. But what I mean 12 hours. So what I've never understood is that, and I know that some people like working 12 hours. So no shade to those people.
Sure.
But the thing that I don't understand is that the reason why, and I shouldn't say that this is the reason why, but like when you think of it, 12-hour shifts happen because, you know, somebody works 12 hours, another person takes over and they work 12 hours,
Yep.
12 hours and 12 hours equal 24 hours. That's one day. So there's 2 shifts a day.
Right.
The typical working day for like an average, 9 to 5 worker
8 hours.
is 8 hours.
Right. So why don't you
Which
have three? Why don't you have three
actually
shifts of
also
8 hours?
happens to be divisible
by 24. Right.
by 24, or 24 is divisible by 8 as well.
Right.
In 3 shifts. So why aren't there just 3 shifts?
Well, I would imagine
only because
from
the health benefits to the individual human must be
So
significantly.
I'm going to take a stab at this. I'm going to take a stab at it from the healthcare perspective, healthcare system perspective, and go, the healthcare system is so logistically fucked and hard that just removing the need to schedule one more person in that same 24-hour rotation.
But you don't
of
have to
time
schedule. I know that
is like added up over however many nurses, physicians, whatever are working in the hospital on one hospital on any.
I
given
personally
day.
think that's a bit of a
like-
cop out though, because
It might be. I'm just saying that it might just be like
because
that might be the reason.
But the reason why I would say that shouldn't be, if it is yes, you have to schedule more shifts, but you still have the same amount of employees. And so the only extra work is, it's not like finding a new human to work those shifts. It's like you divide them up over more days, which obviously means that you have more of a challenge with the schedule to schedule more shifts, as you mentioned. But it can't, the argument can't be that it's more difficult for scheduling. Like that can't be it. It can't be like, oh, there's, that means that there's an extra, 30% more shifts in a week or whatever. That I feel like that is a cop out.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I mean, like when you scale, it's a small problem that when it gets scaled up, it could be bad.
Yeah.
In the most recent 12-month period for which data was available, there were about 300 accounts of near collisions involving commercial airlines.
Sounds like if they were working 8-hour shifts, that maybe those near aircraft collisions might come down.
The results are undeniable. There has not been a fatal crash involving a major U.S. airline since February 2009, when a Continental flight crashed into a house near Buffalo, killing all 49 people on board. The 14-year streak.
Well, that's not the air traffic controller's fault.
No, it's not. The 14-year streak is the longest in the history of U.S. aviation. So we're currently in the longest stretch of crash-free things in U.S. aviation. I wonder what it is for Canada. I would say it's probably pretty similar. Yeah. But like, just to return just for a second before we wrap up on the on the idea of
8-hour shifts.
No, not 8-hour shifts, of AI, like AI and technological advances. I mean, like driving a car, it's already, so if you're not aware of this with self-driving, self-driving is already proven to be safer than humans. And it's been proven for quite some time, I believe. But yet we don't have self-driving cars everywhere. And it's like, and it's in some ways it's perplexing, because it's like, well, if less people die when you have robots driving the car, why don't robots drive the car?
This will happen, obviously.
Yes.
But the reason why the technology, you're right, and there are less, almost no accidents that are caused by the self-driving vehicle technology. One of the problems right now with self-driving vehicle technology is that it's unreliable.
And the mixture
that's
people and self-driving.
Yes, and particularly with the problem that sometimes self-driving vehicles just stop in the middle of the road, and they haven't been trained on every possible situation that could possibly happen. So there's issues like, they don't know how to respond when emergency vehicles are approaching, or not when they're approaching.
That might be an old problem, but
no, this is a new
problem.
This is a new one where, like, they'll pull over and think that they're getting out of the way, but they actually like pull over and block where the actual vehicle wants to go, because they can't anticipate what the other vehicle
did that to me on a bike last night
is trying to do. And so there are issues like that don't necessarily result in like deaths, but like do result in like very inconvenient situations that obviously need to improve before the technology can be like fully released. But
I absolutely love driving. Like I like driving a car, and it is very sad to me that one day I probably won't drive a car anymore. But I am very optimistic that the world will be a better place when we're not driving cars anymore. I think
me too.
Human error is the biggest problem. And it's the biggest problem in this story. In this story with the planes.
Totally. And I think that, you'll be able to go to a track and drive if you want to drive, or like do that as a, rather than your source of enjoyment of like driving a fast car on a road where you're like weaving in and out of traffic because it's a thrill to be able to drive that vehicle. You can still do that, but instead in an environment where you're not putting other people's lives in danger.
I think I'm a future optimist. I'm an AI optimist. I think maybe not in my lifetime. Hopefully.
Me too, dude.
Not in the time where I want it to happen, because what I really want AI to do is I want there to be a super general intelligence where the last thing that we need to invent is the super general intelligence. And then everything that we need as humans and that this earth needs is done by a thing
Agents.
that requires, it doesn't require to be paid. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't complain.
Until it does.
It just does. No, it will not, because it's a computer, and we're just gonna tell it not to, and it's gonna do that. And what that's going to allow everybody to do is to do only what they want to do. And what I want to do right now is just raise my children. Like that's what I want to do. Like I just want to raise my kids. I mean, I love working with you and Jer, and I love doing the things that we do. But like, if I really boiled it down, I'd go, what do I want to do with my life? I go, I want to love my kids all day, every day. Like that's what I really want to do. And work is just a fucking inconvenience to that. And also, unfortunately, a requirement in order to do it as well. Like, because I cannot take care of those children without doing the work that helps them and gives them the things that I want them to have and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I stand on that.
I believe that those days are closer than we think they are.
Well, it is definitely a logarithmic improvement over time. So we are exponentially getting there. And you're right. You're right. I'm only 32. Fuck, dude. 40? Dude, when we're 40, what is the world going to look like? Holy shit.
The craziest thing is that we're not even really human. You've just been watching artificial intelligence the entire time.
Wow. Think about this for a second. It's the year 2023. 16 years ago, Steve Jobs got on stage and said,
one more thing.
check out the iPhone.
That's what he said. He said
He
one
said
more thing.
He said, there's one more thing that my turtleneck would like to tell you about. 16 years ago.
It's crazy.
16 years from now. What are we looking at? Who fucking knows, man? It's crazy. All right. You good?
That's it. Yeah.
All right. That is it for this week, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We will be inviting Jer back into the studio, not next week, but the week after that.
I'm actually away next week.
Jer's
probably shouldn't do it.
Jer's off in Portugal. Oh yeah, I guess you're away next week. I mean, fucking unless you want to listen to me rant about some shit, which tell me if you do or not. You don't. If you do, then I'll do it, and if you don't, then I won't. So let me know. My feelings aren't hurt because I don't base my life off of anybody else's thoughts and feelings, except for my wife and my children, and a little bit of you. Just a little bit.
Dude, that's crazy. That's crazy that you don't do that. I guess you don't need to go to therapy. If there's anything that we said that's dumb or wrong, or you can provide any more context to, which I'm sure there are lots of things, feel free to send us an email. Don't send us some emails about the same topic. That would be weird.
Definitely. Yeah. Keep it on one.
You can write us at letters@sickboypodcast.com. And thanks to Rich O'Coin for the theme music, and Jer, Donovan, Jeff, all the other people who helped make this show happen. Thanks. We love you guys.
And I feel like there's something else because Jared does his part.
Like and subscribe.
Like and rate and review and subscribe and do all that stuff so that you get this automatically into your podcast player, whatever that one is, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Podcasts or whatever it's called now. It's coming out. I'm not sure if it's even launched yet.
Amazon Music.
And we love you. And until next time,
I'm Brian.
I'm Taylor. And this is
Sick Boy.
Sick Boy.